Hello, welcome people. This is I Need Living Conversations 152, 152, The Secret Life of Water, Part 3. This owl investigation about what you probably don't know about water and how through water we can learn about how much is really unknown to everyone about the universe, the nature of life, the nature of everything of the world we live in. So you have to watch the other two sessions we had before this one. And if you didn't and want to listen to this one, then please do, because it's still going to reveal a lot of things that are very interesting and very helpful and very profound and very, very out of the mainstream knowledge. So welcome. I'm with Blue Heron Woman, who is going to be giving us this amazing teaching and investigation. And I am Julian Catari, the host and person that introduces the video. So welcome.
and co-creator of the empire we're building.
And illustrator.
Yes.
Editor and etc. We do a lot of things for our sustainable dojos.
So I'm not quite sure where I left off last week, so part of this might be a repeat, but we're going to start with this. So Victor Schauberger in Austria in the early 1900s was considered a water wizard. He'd studied water, he'd lived with water, so at the Stuttgart University of Technology in 1952, his theories were tested under strict scientific laboratory conditions. And the test showed that when water is allowed to flow in its naturally ordained manner, it actually generates certain energies, ultimately achieving a condition that could be termed negative friction. Checked and double-checked, the well-documented but largely unpublicized pioneering discovery vindicated Victor's theories. Everyone was making fun of him. And it also overturned the scientifically sacred second law of thermodynamics that states without continuous input of energy, all closed systems must degenerate into a condition of total chaos or entropy. So the experts at the Stuttgart University of Technology proved that this law applies only to machines. Only to machines. Not to living technology, not to living organisms.
And that's something I really loved, because I read that part. You gave me the book thing. Sorry if I interrupt, but I want to really emphasize how this is a proof that we are of how we live in the science that is taught to us, and hence the way we think is so machine-like.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like one of the best examples I've ever found of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the upholder of the cycles which sustain all life is water. In every drop of water dwells a deity whom we all serve. There also dwells life, the soul of the primal substance, water, whose boundaries and banks are the capillaries that guide it and in which it circulates. Every pulse beat arising through the interaction of will and resistance is indicative of creative work and urges us to care for all vessels in which throbs the product of a dualistic power called life. So every waterway of this life is an artery of this life, an artery that creates its own pathways and bridges as it advances, so as to diffuse its dawning life force through the earth. And we humans constantly do the most idiotic thing imaginable by trying to regulate these waterways by means of their banks, by influencing the flow mechanically instead of taking into account that water is a living entity. The assumption behind this absurd practice is that the riverbank shapes the water course, and the truth is that the riverbank is secondary, water is primary. So water shapes its own course. Large rivers such as the Danube, the Rhine, the Mississippi bear witness to the failure of the complicated and costly river regulations. Quite apart from the tremendous damage caused in the lower reaches by their strictly mechanical regulations, these rivers are stripped of their most valuable assets, their great physical qualities. And the present dirty, gray, muddy brew known as the Blue Danube, upon whose bed river gold once gleamed, is a tragic testimonial to the perverse practices. So the mythic river gold originated in the gold glow given off by pebbles as they rubbed against each other while rolling along the riverbed at night. For when there is a decrease in water temperature, the attractive force increases, causing the stones to move. And so if two pebbles are rubbed together underwater, a golden glow appears. Today, the pebbles and river gold, no longer imbue the water with energy and soul as they once did, because humans have screwed it all up. In the lower reaches of the Danube, almost 1 million hectares of farmland has been lost. And this was the early 1950s. Think about how much more has been lost. In the lower reaches of the Danube, almost 1 million hectares of farmland were lost to the regulation of the upper reaches, and similar conditions apply to all other rivers. Even today, the river engineer fails to understand the nature and purpose of water. The harder he or she tries to conduct it by the shortest and straightest route to the sea, the more it will tend to form bends to make its path longer and its health quality worse. The flow of water down a natural gradient obeys a sublime inner law whose power our experts are quite unable to comprehend. So science maintains that water is braked by internal and external friction, although it is well known that friction is associated with generation of heat. It can be shown though that the temperature of fast-flowing water decreases, which leads to an increase in tractive force and internal friction. So the force that breaks the flow of water down a gradient is a resistance which acts against the force of gravity, a circulation of energy operating in the opposite direction to the current. And this is also true of all metabolic processes. And this gives water its character and its soul. But contemporary systems of river regulation inhibit this vital function. The more extensive regulatory works become, destroying water's naturally ordained inner functions, the greater the ensuing danger to the river banks and the surrounding area. Now characterless, water breaks out of its bonds, having become unstable, and it seeks to regain its soul. And so the water masses abandon their proper course, and the earth's arteries are now suffused with cancerous decay. This leads to the qualitative degeneration of vegetation, principally in the internal decay of forest trees. The spreading of cancer is the inevitable consequence of these unnatural systems of regulation. So the more immature or juvenile the water is that is emerging from seeping springs or otherwise extracted from the ground, and the smaller the difference between contrasting magnitudes originally present, the weaker will be the interactions. And the more inferior the quality of the products of this energy exchange, the less complex are the microorganisms that evolve. The human body's metabolic processes are dependent on a specific composition of basic elements, the carbon and oxygen groups contained in water. So similarly, the development of qualitatively high-grade vegetation is dependent on there being a particular ratio between the quantities and qualities of these substances in water. And these quantities and qualities generate a particular internal temperature appropriate to each organism, in which they are taken up as a result of the interactions occurring during the reciprocal oxidizing processes, the INI. A particular inner temperature produces a certain physical form, which in turn generates the special kind of immaterial energy we encounter as character. Making water is not a simple matter. Every drop of water is a virgin territory and a source of unlimited power. Water eggs are present in both metal and mineral. A little heat, a little cold, a little light, and a little darkness are enough to inflame the passions of metal and mineral alike, so that they produce a chemically pure water, and now the whole begins to grow spontaneously. The phenomena and processes of transmutation which arise from differences in energy potential that produce water eggs permeate and animate the remaining substances. Being in a less organized state, the latter would never experience their transformation into an organically different form of life if they did not actually force the juvenile water to carry out purposeful work before their transformation. So from this, we ought to take into consideration what this is teaching us about ourselves. Purposeful work, not just
Mhm.
working for a paycheck, purposeful work.
Mhm.
Okay. So by this standard, it means 99.9% of the population are all juvenile because none of them are doing purposeful work. They're all working only for the money.
Mhm. And they might say, "Oh, I'm working for my family," but I remember
That's still
what you wrote
juvenile.
down in one of the cards, the DNA cards, the I Ching cards. That's still immature.
Oh, it is.
Selfish. Even if it's you say, "Oh, it's not selfish. It's I'm thinking of my family." Well, you
No,
gotta
that's
think of the large family and the next 7 generations.
yeah. Thinking of my immediate Earth family is not mature. It's juvenile,
Mhm.
very juvenile. So it is these substances that lift the water up through the ground and not the water that lifts them up. So precisely the reverse takes place in the atmosphere, where it is a juvenile water that forces the very buoyant substances to conduct the water procreated in the atmosphere gently back to Earth. In other words, the juvenile water ensures that the heavenly substances imbued with mechanical and levitative energies are constantly returned to Earth in order to assist other substances to reach higher regions and levels of evolvement. Constantly Aini. Constantly Aini. We cannot turn anywhere without running into Aini.
Mhm.
So in nature, mechanical pressure and physical suction are always in a condition of rhythmical alternation, which is why there is no state of rest in this world, as the relation between pressure and suction is always in the ratio of 2 to 3. The most important precondition for the production of water is the angle, for through it the feelings find their expression, such as happens with laughter. Without pulling in the angles of the mouth, laughter would be impossible.
Mhm.
This angle is a oneness in a monolinear plane, infinite and very similar to the infinity spiral. This infinite plane is what we describe as time, and all we have to do is create organic loops in order to produce water eggs, and from them, the water creates the spaces for nutritive material. And water eggs are sometimes visible to the naked eye, but mostly they're not. Protein formation occurs in many different shapes and sizes, and protein is in the earth in solid state. In water, it is in liquid state, and air is gaseous. Solid, liquid, and gaseous are 3 special states. And by means of the appropriate angle, the ethereal elements are concentrated into a mixture of the 3. And then we have the natural formation of protein. There are also air eggs and earth eggs. Air eggs produce water, water eggs produce earth, and earth eggs produce energy eggs or dynagens. With the energy eggs, we have a flowing movement of energy. The energy eggs are nourished by the substances of air. And when water is energetically discharged by iron grills and turbines, it loses its energy eggs, its dynagens, becoming unipolar. And that is why water then destroys its own channel. Water changes its boiling and freezing points according to its inner state of tension. Trees synthesize water, and so if there's no force, there is no water. If water is devoid of inner atomic energies, it is unable to rise. And in our bodies, under-energized blood leads to sclerosis of the vessels. And all kidney diseases can be attributed to de-energizing phenomena.
Mhm.
So in nature, 2 forces prevail: gravitation for expulsion and purging, and levitation for upward impulsion and synthesis. This gives a cycloid motion, and the state of equilibrium between the 2 always remains constant. If the weight of the organization of basic elements is reduced due to the disturbance of cycloid motion, then the buildup of quality has also been disturbed. If the cycloid motion is fostered in draining water, then the growth of collagen is increased. Higher potency substances or potentialities are then built up, and the resulting growth of raw materials then acts as a counterweight to the buoyant or levitative force so that a state of equilibrium is maintained. Between these two mutually self-compensating or INI interactive forces, the upbuilding and downgrading indicates the state of well-being. Water, the blood of earth, is predominantly maternal or formative in nature, and for this reason it must inwhirl about its ideal axis in exactly the same way as Mother Earth does. Day by day she moves around the fertilizing sun, which constantly alters the angle of incidence of its rays so that no over-fertilization can occur. Viewed biologically, water is an accumulator as well as a transformer, and so this makes water an organ which is remotely controlled by the cathode and anode systems of the sun and the moon. So it can carry out either function depending on its circumstances. In all processes of solution and combination, water is governed by various influences. The most important are light and heat, cold and darkness. And the metabolic processes of water are created by the alternation of night and day, or the life rhythm of Mother Earth. And metabolic processes trigger dynamic phenomena, which present us with a practical perpetuum mobile, which we can copy when we understand this ceaseless practice. Whether drinking water deposits energies in our body or extracts rejuvenating substances is a question of the temperament or the will of the water, or the will that the water possesses at the time of drinking. One of the most difficult tasks in the treatment and preparation of drinking water involves the sterilization of surface water and immature groundwater. There is hardly a city or even a rural area where water is not disinfected or sterilized through the addition of chlorine, compounds of silver, or irradiation with quartz lamps. In all these processes, a form of oxygen is produced which will kill all living organisms. It never enters anyone's head that certain material energies will be denied to people who regularly consume sterilized water, sterilized milk, or other sterilized foods, and that's all you can buy. This deficiency will lead to a decrease in their mental, physical, and sexual potency and will inevitably weaken their bodies. This weakening leaves the door wide open for disease. And even back in the 1950s, there was relevant statistical data that clearly revealed that cancer is most prevalent where no good, high-quality spring water is available. Even where spring water is still good and healthy, it deteriorates as a result of being transported in pipelines hundreds of miles long. The pattern of the spread of cancer can be measured against the length of the pipes in which domestic drinking water flows to its point of use. The quality and quantity of water's oxygen content is substantially altered under the present systems of aerobic water purification, which take place under the influence of light. And this results in disturbances to the metabolism, and it results in the aggregation of oxygen, which the water in the body cannot assimilate. As a result of the additional internal pressures thus created, the first symptoms of disease manifest themselves as swellings and tumors. In the case of trees, these become clearly visible in shade, demanding timbers exposed to direct sunlight and warm, strongly oxygenated soils. So if we take in good food, good air, and healthy, mature water, highly complex bacteria are formed which consume low-grade forms of life that may develop in us, and those low-grade forms of life would be disease-causing. So the inner material content of water is crucial to the height of the groundwater table. As revealed by spring water rising vertically to the top of mountains, the inner energies in mature water become so powerful they are able to overcome the inherent weight of water masses and form aquifers. The development of all life and the associated formation of structures is not merely a process to do with heat, it also has to do with cold, for life can only be born out of the differences. If we were to study the water supply systems of the ancient Romans, we would observe from archaeological remains that when their towns were originally founded, great trouble was taken to deliver the necessary water to the place of use in wooden pipes or in conduits of natural stone. Because water loses its high-grade psyche by being conducted in unnatural pipes, and then it also becomes endowed with a pernicious and second-rate psyche from the pipes. And then, as often happens, water is impelled through turbines and physically smashed to pieces by the high rotational velocity of the blades. And when it is discharged from the turbines and mixed with other water, serious damage is inflicted on the organisms and the surrounding soil to which such water is supplied. This treatment of Earth's blood could be equated with blood transfusions, and thus, let's say a unit of blood is taken from someone and vigorously stirred with a whisk, blend it with foreign blood, maybe from a pig. Yeah, let's take a unit of blood from a pig, mix it with human blood, vigorously stir it, fuck it up, mix it up, blend it, right? And then inject it into the body. What do you think it'll do? Kill us, if not just making us seriously ill and insane. But the bottom line is the same thing happens when water treated like that is drunk by us. So our blood is systematically destroyed. So we don't degrade the psyche of water. If we don't want to degrade the psyche of water, then it is essential that the material selected is a poor conductor of heat and a properly formed organic nature. So the most suitable material is good, healthy wood. Good, properly treated wood can last far longer than any of the unnatural man-made materials. The wood pipe should be laid and surrounded by sandy, humus-free bedding. The hydraulic efficiency of pipes constructed with wood is actually somewhat greater than that of iron or other metals. But the types of timber cultivated by modern forestry are well nigh useless for this purpose, because today's artificial plantation forests furnish timbers that don't possess the properties or durability of timber grown in natural conditions. Water can conserve its pipe system if its inner conformity with natural law is taken into account. Rivers seldom attack their banks if their inner conformity with natural law has been maintained. But through the wanton clearing of forests, the rivers are robbed of protection from the sun and heat given by the leafy canopy of trees. And then, since the rivers are subsequently subjected to regulation by purely mechanical means, both produce higher concentrations of oxygen in the water, which seeks out carbones from both the channel and body and banks. And carbones are anything. We're going to have a definition of carbones coming up.
So it's not carbons? It's not like carbon atoms? No.
No, it's carbones. Yeah.
Okay.
Different. Yeah.
Okay.
Once this water reaches deeper and cooler lakes where the now aggressive oxygen is concentrated, the precipitation of salt follows and fresh water is transformed into seawater. So, yeah. Freshwater lakes can become saltwater lakes because of the way we treat it. If we were to investigate deep sea water, we would discover that the material composition of air absorbed by it differs in quality and quantity from that contained in surface water. Seawater at great depths cannot absorb gases by diffusion or convection. Because the carbon dioxide content of the atmosphere is less over the sea than over land, the conclusion can be drawn that the surface of the sea absorbs carbon dioxide directly from the atmosphere. Deep sea creatures can be distinguished from their counterparts in shallow waters by their size, their strangely constructed eyes, the different consistency of their bodies, and by their original body shape, because the external environment stamps each individual with its own characteristics. This is a need to understand the landscapes. The Bagua, right? If we examine the blood vessels of a small snail, we would see that there are two differently colored systems, and we would see that in humans also. The blood in the outer system of vessels is lighter, and the inner system is darker. The composition of blood in the outer has higher oxygen, while the inner system has more carbones. Investigation further would demonstrate that suspended matter is concentrated in the middle, where dissolved matter congregates towards the periphery. In addition, if the blood flow is thought to be moving along a straight line, then the velocity of forward motion is less at the periphery than it is at the center. But this difference is purely illusory. The forward motion of the inner particles of fluid only appear to be faster because the outer blood particles must describe a path corresponding to a double helical motion, a spiral within a spiral. The double spiral of the inner system cannot be observed, as it is an energy path. So the view then that the heart pumps blood to the body is actually not valid. The work is performed by the millions of active capillaries. So health and disease are primarily dependent on the faultless health or the disturbed disease activity of the capillaries. In the case of wooden water pipes, the particles of matter that are not drawn into the center will be pressed into the surface of the pipe walls by the pressure, and these particles will combine with the materials of the timber and seal the pores of the wood, so the pipe is now more durable than iron. The water is now mature, and both wood and water are immune to outside influences. And that's where we'll stop for tonight.
Wow. But isn't it going to keep going?
Yeah, we have one more.
Okay. Wow. So that's it for now.
That's it for now.
That's it for now. Wow. What a mystery. This was one of the scientists that got murdered, I guess.
He died. He willed
He died?
himself to death because he was brought to the US to do some work, and no one knows. All that is said is words were exchanged, and he stopped talking to anyone. I'm guessing the US wouldn't cooperate with what he wanted.
You know, I did a search for the terms of qualitative, these words. I didn't search for carbons because I thought it was, you're referring
I guess
to
the definition
carbon.
is in the next one, and if you're already working on the next one, you should have seen the definition. It's I forget. It's everything but oxygen. I can't remember what the definition of carbon is.
Carbones, yeah. So I did find when I was searching for those words, somebody that in Spanish wrote about that. I was searching for the word dynamogens.
Dynogens?
Dynogens, that's it, dynogens. And I found a blog where somebody, or some kind of a forum, very interesting, where they actually take it. So this is like serious, deep stuff, like very, very deep stuff. And this is the most fascinating things that kind of thing that you can find is not your typical, guru that just talks nice to you, but an actual person of science that's made that connection with what this is practiced by the shamanic peoples. And that is, but so this kind of proves so many things, and it's just amazing that you are touching that, and it's coming to you. It's it's finding you.
Yeah,
it's finding us.
It's finding me. Absolutely.
It's finding us. So well, if we're done, I want to invite people to find you, find us, and then find them their intellect, find the call of their inner spirit to actually be part of something and do something in this world.
That's far larger than just leaving a legacy for your family, which they will only fight over on your deathbed.
Or just surviving. And sometimes that's a challenge because we are sometimes kind of under the pressure, under the circumstance of so many bad things that are happening. And we need to find the strength in ourselves to embracing that situation, to want to get out of that situation. Want to-
Exactly.
not just
I mean,
survive it and resist it, but actually end it.
most of us say, well, you know, I would love to have a farm, but first I have to work hard and save enough money and do this, and that's the thing. What people, that's where the jealousy of the local people around here don't understand is I walked in and bought a farm,
Hmm.
right? So therefore I must be independently wealthy. They never knew that I haven't ever been independently wealthy, that it's been a walk of faith, right? Holy Mother teaching me to not be so fucking dependent on money,
Mm-hmm.
to draw out my creativity, to figure out how to do things without money.
Mm-hmm. Find a
but-
path which normally lies outside of your comfort zone or your mindset.
Right. Well, so I guess the thing is, you got to be willing to give up the conditions that say, well, I got to do this and this first to
Mhm.
arrange my life so that it will happen. No, you don't know, because you'll end up at 70 years old and realize that you have spent the last 70 years living the same year over and over and over again for 70 times instead of living life.
Mm-hmm.
That you've gotten nowhere. You've just gotten nowhere. It's the same thing as, well, I can't have a kid till I have this much. Well, then that's when your girlfriend gets pregnant, or you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to stop preparing and just live life.
You gotta flow like water.
Well, like water.
Mm-hmm. And that's what next conversation is going to be. I guess the fourth session of
Still the secret life of water. We're still
Secret
going to
Life
be
of Water.
talking about the creation of mature water and how it naturally flows, and all of Victor Schauberger's material.
wow. So there's the invitation. No time changes, and
Yeah, we can go 15 minutes earlier.
you want to change it.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's move it back to 8.
Okay. So 8 o'clock Central Standard Time.
Yep.
Straight from Oklahoma. You'll have this live show. Please, if you join the live show, please leave a comment. Otherwise, also do so in the regular recorded section. I know there's people that watch this. I know there's people that appreciate this. Please let us know that, and please support this any way you can. Please join for your own sake. So, with that being said, we say goodbye, and waterfalls of blessings to everyone. See you next time.